Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 23 of Expressions the Podcast, where each and every week we introduce you to a variety of guests to help trigger your expression, try to find a way to inspire you to chase after the things that you want in life. On today's episode, we're joined by the extremely talented, the extremely funny, and the extremely expressive Brian Dunn. He's had a long career in the broadcasting world, starting all the way back as a PA on Video and Arcade Top 10, a show that I used to watch every single night. So I'm very excited about that. And the man has worked his way up to now being in Korea. He's doing a lot of work in Korea. He's working for TELUS. He's working for a lot of different people right now, doing a lot of different things that we cannot wait to dive into. So without further ado, let's get into Expressions. There we go.
I love that theme song.
See, we could use Brian as our new theme song. I think that might work. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Expressions the Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Knight. With me are my beautiful hosts, Brian Weiss, Mark Flinders, and Aurora Robinson. Each and every week, as I mentioned at the start, we try to introduce guests to you that will hopefully spark something that causes you to go out and find what it makes you want to express yourself. I know with the pandemic over the last 2 years, it's crazy to think it's almost been 2 years now, but I know it's been very interesting and it's hard to find motivation. So we hope with each and every week we can help you guys motivate yourselves to become better at what it is you want to do. Now, before we dive into our guest, Mr. Brian Dunn today, let's talk to our co-host, see how everybody's doing. Brian, how are you feeling this week?
Feeling great. Feeling awesome. Yeah. We had an interesting launch of a video this past week. And I just thought it was kind of fun that we had such a great reaction. You talked about everybody expressing themselves, and we encourage people to express themselves. And to be honest, even though it was an interesting way of expression, everybody expressed themselves very well, I think. And, you know, the show is doing that. And I think it's great that we have some interaction and we have a lot more viewers coming to watch the episodes these days. And Brian, I've been watching your stuff a lot, actually. I've done my research.
I saw you looked at my LinkedIn profile. I was like,
yes.
Who's this guy?
He's a creeper. He's a creeper.
Got to make notes.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. No, I'd like to know, a little bit about who I'm going to talk to. And I got to say, moving to Korea and all the things that you've done, it's pretty fascinating. Last week, we spoke with a guest from Japan. So we are international. We're all over the place. It's great. And thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you.
Happy to be here.
Mark, how about you, man? How you doing this week?
Doing well. Actually, it's funny you say the pandemic over 2 years. My wife and I ordered furniture in November 2020, and it arrived on Saturday. So the pandemic does no fear. We had things to sit on before it came, but it was interesting.
Your dogs.
So long to get here. Yeah, the dogs. Yeah. I just saddle them up, and away we go. But no, I missed last week's episode. I was I think I had family over when we recorded that one, so I did watch the episode. It was a great episode. Full of some great things, and the commentary was good as well. So hopefully we'll have some great comments on this episode as well. And I'm really looking forward into diving into what it is Brian does, because unlike Brian Weiss, I did no research, and I basically worked up until when I had to come into StreamYard, and I'll work after again. So.
Many of the greats do that. Jerry the King Lawler always said before he'd go and do a wrestling commentary, he would never go to the meetings. He would never be involved in any of the pre-chat, so that he'd have real reactions when he was in the middle of his show. So there you go.
That's what I am. Yeah, because I had no idea that we were having a cake decorator on tonight. So this is going to be great.
Yeah.
You need any cakes done, give Brian a call. He's there.
Sure, you eat cakes.
And finally, Aurora, how are you doing this week? I feel like I haven't seen you in a little while with the episode. I think we've been on different episodes. So
yeah. I've been doing good. Pretty busy with work. A lot of at my particular store, there's a lot of content creators that are coming in to take a look at some of our displays and stuff. So I got a chance to meet quite a few interesting content creators over the last few weeks. And this week has been pretty good. I got the chance to celebrate with my friend. She's getting married in November, and she had a bridal shower. So that was kind of nice. Yeah, and today was just kind of a lazy day watching Walking Dead with Andrew. So
Can't beat that. Can't beat the lazy days.
Yeah.
That's what I'm all about these days.
Have you played the Walking Dead pinball game? I just played that a couple weeks ago. It was really fun.
I have not, but that sounds awesome.
You gotta check it out.
I've watched all of The Walking Dead up until I guess this new season that's coming out. I don't know, it's a movie or a season. But I'm rewatching it with Andrew, so yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, and of course, the meat and potatoes of our episode today, the one, the only, Mr. Brian Dunn.
The sandwich.
Brian.
Hello. How's it going?
The trifecta is complete. We've got Ryan, Brian, and Brian for I think a third or fourth time here on Expressions.
Yeah, and once again,
awesome. I love that.
All different spellings, so that's
all different spellings once again.
Yeah.
So before we dive into everything, I got to ask you, how have you been holding up over the last year or so with the pandemic? We'll dive into your career, but I got to know how you're feeling, how you're holding up, because it's been, as I mentioned, a very bizarre 24 months almost.
Yeah, well, 2020 started amazingly well for me. We can talk about my appearance on a popular show later, but that was all the beginning of 2020. I was like, whoa, I'm gonna kill this year, and then I was my wife and daughter were in Korea at the time, and Korea was the second kind of outbreak after China. So come back, please come back. They came back, and then they came back on March 10th, and everything shut down here. And then Korea was way better, managed it way better than us over here. So
they kind of went to the wrong area. You probably should have gone over there. Right?
Yeah, should have. And we actually considered going back, but then it's like, we'll talk about all the Koreanness. But man, moving back and forth is quite a deal. This year, I've been busy. I have a couple jobs I'm working on right now. Wife and daughter went to Korea again this winter because we knew it'd be a bad COVID winter. So I was by myself. So it was spent a lot of time in the basement here watching movies, but everything's good now. We're back home and vaccinated, and everything's good.
You're not going too stir crazy all by yourself there, all by your lonesome?
I did a little bit, but then it's like, oh, I miss them so much. And then it's like, oh, my daughter likes waking up at 7 a.m. Oh, I forgot.
Got to take the good with the bad. Exactly. That's awesome. So let's talk about your career, because I know you've had a very, very interesting career, to say the least. You've done quite a lot of things over your time. Starting with, and correct me if I'm wrong, was Video and Arcade Top 10 working as a PA there? Was that your first job in the broadcasting world? Kind of your first foray?
My very first job was on Video and Arcade Top 10, and it was in June, and my job was to turn on the air conditioner in between breaks. That was my job. I just sat there, and they go, "Okay, Brian, got it."
That is an important job. That is a very important job.
Got to keep everyone comfy, right?
And you were fairly young when you were doing that too, were you not?
I was 15. I was pretty young for TV jobs, so that was at Pyman Studios here in Mississauga, which is where we did Bite later on, and I moved up into Video and Arcade as well. We can talk about that later if you want. So I was there for 6 years. Canada's longest running game show. Nicholas Pickles was the DJ at my wedding. I'm still really good buddies with him. We're doing a Video and Arcade shirt with Retro Kid, which is a really cool t-shirt company that's founded by the voice of Bugs Bunny. They do a lot of retro. Wow. They do they have a Today's Special shirt. They did all these Space Jam shirts. So this is going to be a really nice Video and Arcade shirt coming out sometime soon. They told me it's coming out soon, but I'm really happy to have helped set that up.
That's awesome. Now, at 15, how did you find yourself in that position? Was that something that you had to kind of chase down? Was it something that you were in the right place, right time? How did that come about?
My very close family friends of ours lived across the street from the guy who started the studio. And when you think about a guy that owns a studio, you think of like a guy in a slick suit and stuff, but he was just like a farm guy. Like he didn't look like he owned a TV studio. And it was kind of small starting up, but he just built it up. He did some like business shows and stuff in there. They did a lot of golf, like Score Golf TV. And one of their shows they did every month was Video and Arcade Top 10. So that was one set they had year round, just set up there with the fake walls and stuff. So that was my first ever gig, and such a classic show to work on. It was something that I grew up watching that too, because it was, I think, the height of its popularity is in like the mid to late 90s, but it went all the way to 2006, and I was there from 2000 to 2006. was awesome.
Great. It's crazy to think of how long that show was running for too. I went back, let's say a year or two ago, just to watch an old episode on YouTube, which you can find quite a bit on YouTube.
There's a lot of them.
I love it. Yeah. I don't know if you love that or not because it's free on YouTube now, but
well, I was looking at them because Nick was interviewed on another podcast and I listened to it. Of course, lots of Brian name drops on that podcast.
All over.
Just reminiscing about that. And my job later on was I was actually the judge of that show. So I would like pick the winners and I would set up all the games, which was fine at the start. We had a lot of GameCube games and stuff, but then it was like PS2s and they'd have these really long opening scenes and the producer would be like, oh, can you skip that, Brian? I was like, can't. And we're just like, waiting. 4 different systems waiting to get them all set up. But yeah, I love that show.
Spend an hour talking about Video and Arcade Top 10. Let's be real. So from Video and Arcade Top 10 then, where did you, because you worked on that, as you mentioned, for quite a long time. Was that sort of your main job for a long time, or were you trying to break into other areas as well? Because I know Byte TV, towards the end of Video and Arcade Top 10, is sort of when Byte TV was starting to pop up. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a bit later. So Video and Arcade was at that studio, but I did a lot of other work for that studio. They have a mobile truck, so we did like when the Pope came to Toronto, we did that. We did some like big golf tournaments and stuff. So most summers I would be out with them, just like a freelance basis, but I really learned a lot about TV. Also a lot of infomercials, which are really fun shooting infomercials. And all this food says, do not touch food, poison, because they make it look nice with all these chemicals. So that would be my summers. During the year, I would be at school, and I would do Video and Arcade once a month. We shoot like 5 episodes a month. And then during the summer, I do all the golf stuff with them, infomercials, whatever. And then from that, I went into RT at Ryerson, which is where our friends Jason Agnew went, Wei Ting and John Pollock. I was in classmates with them. So I have so many successful classmates. It's nuts.
Hey, and you're still among them. You are definitely among them.
That's what Wei says.
When you're talking about the different things you were doing while also working on Video and Arcade Top 10, were those opportunities based off of not only your performance, but you not chasing after them, but really wanting them and going for them? Or was it more so because of your resume that you were being asked to do these different jobs?
Well, at the time, I was one of the few PAs working at that studio, so they would just always ask me, and I'd always say yes. So yeah, I would do things like that. Oh, actually, I was also a reporter. I forgot that. I was a reporter. Mississauga News, which was like a newspaper in Mississauga, did like a web newscast. And for a while, I was like reporting, just like a videographer. I'd have a camera and do reporting, just like city events. No serious stuff, just like fun stuff around the city. So that was just another connection as well. Just somebody knew someone. Oh, Brian. I was just like right now, I'm kind of like I'm the Korea guy or like the Bare Naked Ladies guy or something. But back then I was like, oh, Brian does video stuff. Oh, so my mom would say, oh, so-and-so is having a wedding. Do you want to shoot the wedding? Like just always, so people know me as the video guy. Just keep going.
Yeah, and it just never stopped. Yeah,
never stopped.
I can see
I didn't do a lot of weddings.
Like, I know all about that.
Oh yeah.
Actually, we're in a room of photographers outside of myself. So
I put the word out very early on.
Only one wedding.
One wedding? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But it was just video, just something video related. People would call me about. Yeah.
No, that's fair. It's unfortunate too that as soon as somebody sees that you're good at something, it's, hey, can you do this for me for free and just help me out?
I would also work in video into different projects I was doing. Like my last year of high school, I went to Bolivia to do like a kind of like a relief thing. We helped build a hospital. We worked in a women's prison, so I shot a documentary there, which I put into film festivals. I've never made a documentary before, so it's just like a learning experience to try something new. From all the silly stuff I was doing before, I was doing documentaries about the slums in Cochabamba.
How impactful did you find those documentaries from somebody who was going for the experience, obviously, like the work experience? How did you find the personal experiences to be when you're in those sort of like just being at a women's shelter, being in these sort of just different environments?
Yeah, it was watching it back. I remember the guy that was he loaned me his editing equipment and stuff. He was like, "Oh, nice video of you sobbing there, Brian," because it was very impactful. And sometimes I do these video diaries like they're so poor, and it it does hit you. But watching it back, sometimes I didn't include that in the documentary. But overall, yeah, that experience was really impactful to me. And watching it back, parts of me cringes just the way that it was made, but just what that did for my life. And for years and years, I wore like a Bolivian flag colored wristband just to remind me of that experience.
That's incredible. That's incredible. That's one of the things that I love about anybody who takes on a career but then puts themselves in a situation where it doesn't necessarily pertain to the career. It's not the fun side of what they want to be doing, but they end up taking something away from that and having a huge impact on their life. I think that speaks volumes, especially with a lot of the guests we've had. We had a girl on recently who she has been taking photos of the homeless and publishing books, and just hearing her experiences of having to deal with or meeting different people who've suffered from homelessness has been quite an eye-opening experience for ourselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm a little bit curious, so I want to switch gears over to the more fun side of things, which is Byte Television. Byte Television, of course, is where I know you from back in the mid 2000s. There, I'm not sure. Brian, Mark, and Aurora, have you guys ever heard of Byte Television? Are you familiar with it?
I've heard of it. I'm not familiar.
Okay,
I'm only familiar with it from the very first episode we recorded, where you talked about it, inspiring you, and then the next episode that we recorded with Brendan.
Yeah. Oh, right, because Brendan used to watch it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't had a chance to look it up, but it's very good knowing that, I mean, you're involved and you've inspired both Ryan and another one of our guests through that show.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's funny. You never know the wake that you leave when you do a show. You never know who it's going to touch, who it's going to impact, who you're going to meet down the road. One of the things that I thought was pretty funny when I read the answers that you gave us was in your top 5 was when you were noticed by a little girl.
Yeah.
I had the same thing happen to me at a Mandarin restaurant. I did a TV show on Rogers, public access television. It's nothing big. But when I walked in with my wife, the hostess recognized me. She says, like, "You're on TV. She points to my wife and she looks at me and she goes, "He's on TV." It's just the coolest feeling. And the fact that you still bring that with you today as one of your top 5, that says a lot about your character and about how, you don't see anything as being a celebrity or this or that. It's just, these are all very important things and you can hold on to those.
Yeah, that's one reason we can get back to Byte a little bit later, but I have a big interest in children's television. And when I was growing up, I did watch all this random comedy stuff and all silent movies and stuff, but I also watched like Sharon, Lois, and Bram. And when I first met Bram called me on the phone because I was going to my mom wanted me to go into a music camp, and I was a really shy kid and I didn't really feel comfortable doing that. But she called the production company and got Bram to call me and just say, "Oh, hi, Brian. I hear you're interested in joining a music camp. That's a really good thing to try. You should maybe give it a shot." And that is a huge impact on me. So my dream was someday to have that impact on kids, be it in Canada or Korea or China or wherever my content was airing. So that was a really, I can go into more detail about that moment later or now, but that was a very impactful moment for me.
Well, yeah, let's dive into that moment now, because that to me is, I know you've had such a storied career in children's television. It's one thing that gets often overlooked from adults for obvious reasons. We're not sitting back watching it, but I know you've definitely put in a lot of work, and in even reading your responses, I can tell that you've had such a passion for it. So I guess, first of all, what was the story? What's the story of this little girl recognizing you?
So, we lived in Korea for 3 years, from 2016 to 2019. I had lived in Korea before 2010 to 2012, and that's where I met my wife. And so we moved back there to be with her family, and we had our daughter over there. So we were in like a little kids, very small, like kids playroom. It was just like run by the city. They just had some toys in there. And Luna, my daughter, was probably like 1 or something. So we're just sitting together. And there's not a lot of other kids, but some other kids in there. And this father came up to me and said, he said in English, because his daughter couldn't speak English, "My daughter says you look like Brian." I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm Brian." He's like, You're Brian. "Oh, Brian, it's Brian. And I was like, "What?"
Love it.
Because I was on a few different shows over there, but the one I got most recognized for was like the she was the biggest, and she still is the biggest kids YouTuber in Korea. She saw me on some other shows, so she invited me on her show, and I was probably on just like 5 episodes of hers or something, but combines probably 15 million views or something crazy like that, you know?
Wow.
So I was the only foreigner on her show ever. And to this date, I'm the only white guy on that show just ever. I'm the only foreigner. So people recognize, well, kids especially recognize me all the time. So yeah, you know, I took time with that kid, and my wife helped translate, and I took a picture with her. And that happens quite often in the streets. It was a bit different when adults recognized me. I was like, how do you know me? But because I was on some shows as well that were not for kids.
Okay. Yep.
But yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, well, yeah, awesome. That would be a little bit scary if you were on some shows. I was really interested in that, actually. That's Hey Ginny. Is that how it's pronounced?
Hey Ginny.
Hey Ginny. Yeah. So I've watched a lot of stuff with the Hey Ginny, and I've
really
recently. I'm trying to learn.
Oh, I thought maybe like years ago.
No, unfortunately, I don't even have kids, and none of us do. Actually, none of us do, as far as I know, as far as we know. But there
was that one night.
100% sure.
I gotta look in. I'll be right back.
But I was watching these shows, and I watched a behind the scenes on just her. Like, would not you included, just like what she does and the differences between her when she's on air and when she's behind the scenes, and what a business that she's running. And this is like this is a massive business that she runs.
Oh yeah.
And I was watching this thinking, like, how do you get somebody like this to be interested in you?
Yeah,
to even ask you to do it. So I was very curious about that answer. She actually reached out to you, which is awesome.
Yeah, she's a multimillionaire. Like, she has like a clothing line, and she has like a stage show that tours around the country. She is absolutely the biggest kid star over there. So she also works for KBS, which is pretty much like Canada's CTV or something, just like a regular, like a major network. So on KBS, we are both still, actually, I'm still on TV in Korea every Friday at 3:30. Go watch it up. So we're both on. It's called TV Yuchiwan, which means TV kindergarten. So it's on every week, but the English part's on Fridays. So we're on Fridays, and we did a press conference together with her, and it was me and one other English guy from the English show, and some other guy that was on the show about body functions or something, I forget. But she saw me at that press conference and told her producer, like, that guy is like nuts, but I want him on my show. So then they came down to a taping, and everyone knew that they were coming, but we didn't know why. And then after the show, they met with me. Her and her producers were all just in this big circle, and then all translating and stuff. But what she liked about me was that, not that I'm totally crazy all the time, but it's still what is on camera is a heightened Brian, but that's authentically Brian. You know, it's not, I'm not like pretending. Like, she could tell I really enjoyed what I was doing, and I had a passion for it, and that there's so many. There's foreign entertainers there that do things just for the paycheck, which is really just entertainers anywhere, I guess. But she thought I was just like the best of the bunch, and maybe that's why she hasn't had another English performer on her show. Like, it was super compliments to be on her show. And my daughter, my daughter still watches her stuff all the time, especially the ones that I'm in. Loves those shows.
Very cool. It's very cool. You guys actually work really well together,
especially when we're not speaking the same. She speaks English pretty well, but during the show she didn't want to speak.
But that was the cool thing. There were no subtitles, and you were kind of understanding what she was saying and still speaking English, and she was speaking Korean, and I still totally understood what was going on. It was really kind of cool. And you did a thing with the food where you'd lift off the trays.
Yeah.
You didn't know what was in there. I did a YouTube show a while back called the Brown Box Challenge, where we were given 4 boxes, and we had 4 hosts, and we had to pick a box at random and make a video of ourselves making a photo with whatever we got. So just like a random thing. And it reminded me of what you're doing with that kind of thing. Just, you don't know what you're going to get. You open it up and you get that.
And I really didn't know. That was a
hilarious.
true reaction. Yeah.
Loved it. Loved it. I was one of those views, at least one.
Thank you.
So talking about the eccentric personality that you have, because that is one thing I've always seen, and everything that I've watched from you is that you are 100% authentic. Like you had said, it's cranked up, but that to me seems like you've always been this very eccentric individual. When did you develop that personality? Is that something that you've just grown up as, or as you got older, did you kind of find going into your career that if you were a little more eccentric, you'd be able to get on camera, or that's how you want to present yourself? What's the dynamic that you find with that?
As I said, when I was a kid, I was a pretty quiet kid, and still, I really like, I like time to myself too. Like I'm not just like running down the streets, like, be my friend. Hi, I'm Brian. But I always had an interest in TV, and at the time, I was thinking that I wanted to do more behind the scenes stuff, but when I think back to what I really wanted to do, like I wrote in my answers to you guys, my dream was to be a City Pulse videographer. City TV used to have the reporters, but they would have their camera as well, and they would have like a mini camera, so they'd just be the reporter as well. So that was my dream. So I realized I wanted to do more things like in front of the camera or in front of the mic. And when I was in high school, I was like the announcement guy, and I have a unique voice too. So people would be like, there's this one random guy that he would see me and go, announcement guy, hey. So I would turn on the microphone and I would wait like 3 seconds because everyone can hear it click on, and I go, good morning, poor credit. Like I like to shut people on the mic. And then I'd always have funny things to say at the end. It was just something fun to do. And then my friends from high school, we had an actual film class in high school. We shot an actual film and made some comedy movies that went into film festivals. So I was directing those and writing them with my friend, but also we were acting in them as well. So I really did enjoy the on air, like being on camera. So when we got to Byte and I was still doing behind the scenes, I did still get an opportunity to be in front of the camera, which was amazing.
Oh, of course. Now with Byte, we're obviously mentioning, was that the first foray on Byte television that you were actually on camera for? Because I remember seeing you doing some, every once in a while you'd appear on the Surf. I can't remember what the exact role was, but
actually I don't think I was plans to be on the Surf. I was going to be. At first, it was like me, Jay, and Justin Terry. I don't know if you ever remember.
I remember Justin.
Yeah, yep. So Justin would be like the control room guy, and they wanted me to be part of it too. But my control panel was like in another room, and I think maybe the plan was to have me on it later. But then I was kind of when the Surf was going, I wasn't at Byte much longer. I was probably at Byte just maybe half a year or something. The first,
now, to be fair, I was in high school during all of this, so from my memory, it might be a little hazy on all the details.
Well, the actual first appearance I had was on. They used to do this thing on Byte called Miss Multi-Platform, which was like a Girl of the Month, and we do an interview with her, and then she would do the promos, and then we do like a sketch. And it used to be Jay doing the sketches, but then Jay's like, "Why don't you just do them, Brian?" I was like, "Okay." So. Because Jay knew I had like an interest in, making my own stuff, producing things and stuff. Because I got hired as a master control operator and also like a program, like working in programming. So like once or twice a month, I would do those videos, and then the owner of the station, it's such a small. At the time, it's probably like 8 or less than 10 people working at the station. So you could really put your hand in anything. And I was eating a sandwich outside, and the owner's like, you should do like a show. You should put a show on the channel. I was like, what? Like, really? Like, oh my gosh. And Byte never had a million viewers or anything, but you could still say your stuff's on TV, And I programmed the stuff too, so I could program when my stuff went on TV.
And I'm proof there was an audience. There was definitely an audience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, it's so for Brian, Mark, Aurora, and any of our listeners that aren't aware of what Byte Television was, in a nutshell, Byte Television was a low budget, we'll say. I think that's a fair assessment of Byte Television. It was a low budget channel based out of Toronto. and the content that was on Byte Television was well ahead of its time. At least in my opinion, I thought the content out there was incredible. I would have never known it was a low budget station until I got older and heard stories of Jason and Brian saying, hey, yeah, that was pretty low budget stuff we were doing over there. We got away with quite a lot. But it was a very well done show. It was sort of like the Canadian Spike Television. That's how me and Jason used to call it. Yeah. So
it had more of a male slant to it, like Spike TV or something. You're right. We had some stuff from the States that was like cars and girls and stuff, but I would say it mainly turned into a comedy station, and later on it actually became like specifically comedy station. Like near the end, it was just comedy. They didn't have any of the girls or the cars or anything. It's just comedy.
I feel like the channel, like from when I first started watching Byte towards its ending, it definitely grew. It seemed like it grew quite a lot and was trying very hard to be less of like an internet show is what it seemed like at the beginning when you had the scroller at the bottom, you had the ticker, you had all the things along the side. It became like a full screen, full-fledged production. How was it for you being back in the background, I guess, or backstage during all of this and seeing the changes going on? Did you kind of see the end coming, or did you know or did you not know it at all, honestly? Did you just kind of see that day and go, oh, all right?
I wouldn't say I saw the end coming, but I saw some really big changes because when I started, it was only me and Master Control, and we would upload things on beta tapes, which even back then was old. That's really old now, but even in 2007, people weren't like uploading stuff on beta. So even if I had content from some comedy team or someone, they'd send on a DVD, then I'd put it onto beta, and then I'd put it into our system. So, and I'd have to upload that real time. It was very, very slow starting. But yeah, as it grew, there more people joined the company. Then they launched Ox, which was just on Byte at first, and then Ox became its own channel. They had the files now in like computer file. You know how you guys have computers with like files on them? That's how the files would play. There's no beta tapes anymore. And they had another Master Control guy because literally for the first year, I would go home and then the station's just running by itself. That no TV station has nobody there at nights, but Byte did. And we were on Bell Express View, and then they would call because I was the only contact. So they'd call me and be like, "Oh, hey, do you see that your station's having some problems?" Assuming that I'm there. They think that I'm at Master Control. Oh, no. But I'm like in bed. I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, it's 1 second." So I would drive in. Sometimes they'd have power issues at 3 a.m, and I'd drive in at 3 a.m. and get the station back up on air. And
but you got paid extra for that though, didn't you?
Not really. And also like it's just wild thinking about that, and I never even getting that job. I knew Jay from before because Jay worked at that Pyman studio as well, and he was friends with John Way, who I knew, and I knew another of the producers. So they kind of hired me on a whim. I didn't have any expertise to run Master Control. That's a lot of things you have to learn, but I just kind of like. My friend Simon always jokes because I just say, I just kind of figured it out. It's, oh, yeah, that's broken. But if I press that button, it'll work.
It'll work. It kind of sounds like my life. Yeah, it's not working right now. But if I just keep trying this, it'll go.
That's like your wedding vows, right? So it's, things just try and then, okay, she's not crying anymore. We're all good.
Just turn it off and turn it on again.
Yeah. Well done. All right, one last Byte question for you here. Are we ever going to see any sort of Byte reunion? Because this is just for my own personal sake. I got to know. Are we ever going to see a Byte reunion? Has there ever been a conversation about it? Is it something that could possibly happen in the future?
Like with the hosts?
Yeah, get everybody from Byte together and even something on Facebook. Just a quick because I know there's an audience still out there. One of the neatest things for me with Byte is that I'll talk to people, especially in the wrestling industry, who all go, "Oh yeah, I grew up watching Byte television."
Wow.
And it blows my mind. One of our guests, as Aurora mentioned at the start, was him and I built our friendship off when we first met. I brought up Byte Television and Jason Agnew, and he goes, "Man, I used to watch that every night." And we just had a long talk about it. So,
did you say that was Graham? Was it your friend's name, Graham?
No, Brendan.
Brendan. Oh, okay. Yeah. We had like a COVID Zoom call But it was mainly with like no hosts were there. They were invited, but Jay didn't come. But think about Matt and Jay are still doing. They did like a tour for this for like the Ontario Gambling Corporation or something. They're doing this like like fun game show that would go to schools and educate students about the problems of gambling addiction. But that stopped because of COVID, obviously. But they have always been doing things together. They did Splat-a-Lots, most famously back in 2010 or something. That was for a few years.
We know somebody else on Splat-a-Lot, RJ Skinner.
RJ City, yep.
Oh, right, okay. I saw him on Family Feuds a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
And famously, Renee Paquette is like tearing it up. Oh my gosh. I don't know if she'd be available for a reunion. Patricia J is on CP24 now.
I didn't know Renee was ever on Bike TV.
Yeah, she was a bike girl, and then she was a host on Bike for a while.
She has done well for herself.
Yeah. Hey, never say never. I talk to Matt a lot because we are both. I was friends with Matt during Bite, but now I'm like really close friends with him. We mainly about Disney stuff. We're always texting each other about, hey, did you hear it? Did you hear about this? Did you go on this ride? Oh my gosh, all the time. Me and Matt.
No, that's awesome. So let's move forward a bit. Let's get back into your career.
Before we do, question for you. I saw in your answers, you love SCTV.
Yeah,
it sounds a lot like Bite was like SCTV. When you were working there, did you ever have that feeling like this is just like SCTV?
Oh, totally. Like the especially because I think the original idea that the owner had for me to do a show was to do a show in Master Control. And I kind of did that at the beginning. I had like a little opening and closing, but then I would go do other stuff out in the field or something. But yeah, I totally can see the comparison. Maybe not. We had no John Candy or Martin Short, but definitely. I was a fan of that and putting some of that irreverence into our content at Bites. I would also write the crawl at the bottom, so I'd always put silly things in there too.
Oh, I was gonna say, I wondered who did that because I would sit there at points after school and just read the crawl because the funny part to me about Bite was once you got through like 5 hours of their content, which is how long I would sit there and watch it for, it would start to loop at a point, right? So all of a sudden you'd see like the same music video would come on like 2 hours later.
You know what? Sometimes because I would do that programming and I'd be like, okay, I got all these shows. And copy paste, and then we copy paste the programs because, and that was totally my boss was like, yeah, that's fine. Think about even now, if you watch like MTV or something, it's like
it's just random shows, 24 hours. That's it. You're just getting ridiculousness now. Yeah,
we had way more variety than that. It's like I was changing it up as often as I could and putting on different things. And a lot of my stuff.
Yeah, no, 100%. If you compare
a lot of cons, all conventioneers.
Not even just today, but even back then, I think it's a lot of reruns. There's only so much content that you're going to air. You're not going to air new stuff 24/7. You're going to put on repeats, and you're going to cycle through.
And for the vast majority of the content was Canadian content. What channels now have majority Canadian content except for like a news channel, like Canadian, especially comedy. Comedy Network had a lot of that at the beginning, and they do still have some Canadian stuff, but Bite was definitely ahead of all others when it comes to CanCon. And yeah, just short content that you watch a video, it's going to be over in 4 minutes, and then you watch the next one or you watch something else.
You could go for anywhere from like a comedy sketch, which, like you said, would last a couple of minutes, into a music video, into a 20-minute episode of Conventioneers.
Yeah.
Like it was a lot of variety. Now, I do have a quick question about the ticker, because one thing that does stand out to me was I remember reading there used to be random facts from other countries that you never knew, and it would be the most obscure and ridiculous facts from different countries. I'm trying to remember one off the top of my head. There was one that always stuck with me that's unfortunately it's escaping me now, but was that your doing? Do you know? I could see the wheel spinning there.
I'm trying to think of one because I know that was in there. That was partly the guy that did it before me, but then I added in my own. Most of mine would be like random pop culture things that make no sense. I can't even think of one Probably. What was popular in 2007? I have no idea.
I don't even remember now.
Pogs?
Yeah.
People playing Pogs in 2007? I don't know.
Beta? Yeah, beta
Beta,
games
yeah.
were popular back in
And they were at Bytes.
So moving forward, let's dive into what you've done since Byte, because since Byte, you've really expanded. At least, again, this is from the inside or outside looking in. I always saw all the work you did with Byte, and then it became impossible to keep up with what you were doing. I was like, I don't even know what this man's up to these days. It seems like he's all over the map. So what was the transition like for you when Byte first closed down? Were you already working somewhere else as well, or was it like a fresh start for you?
I wasn't there until Byte closed down. I was only there for 2 years, 2007 to 2009, like almost exactly 2 years.
Okay.
I still was good friends with everyone there. Like they really wanted me to stay, but I actually went to Korea with my then girlfriend, who we broke up very soon after. But we went to Korea because I've always wanted to travel. And, I had that trip to Bolivia a few years before. And my cousin at the time was living in Japan teaching, and I always wanted to go to Asia. And Japan, I think, was the first country I thought of because, especially here in Canada, especially at that time, we had more Japanese culture, more Japanese restaurants. So, like, I knew sushi, but if someone asked me a Korean food, I don't think I would have been able to think of one in 2007 or 2010. So yeah, I went over there, not TV related at all. I taught at a English school, elementary school for 2 years in a city named Daejeon, which is an hour south of Seoul. And yeah, just tried something different. I was young enough to know that at the time I was going to be there for a year, and I thought it would be a great experience. Meet new people, see how people live on the other side of the world, maybe learn some language. I became a black belt in Taekwondo over there,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's something I really want to dive into is you went from working in what was essentially your dream career and something that you had been working for your entire adult life at that stage and part of your teenage life as well, to all of a sudden making this huge decision to go to Korea for a year, just based off, it sounds to me like your interest and your, I don't know what else to call it. It just sounds like you were more than interested in doing this, and it was something that you had to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, you're right. It's my whole. I did deliver papers before when working at Video and Arcade, but I wouldn't say that's a career. But yeah, TV was my whole, like, all my work was in TV. Mm-hmm. And hey, maybe back then, if someone said you can get a contract to work in TV in Korea, yeah, I would take that. But at that time, that was the way for me to get to Korea. And I saw it as, this is 1 year. I can get back to Toronto and I can get back into TV. I still know all of these people. Life is short. You just do it, right? I was 25. So I'm so glad because I met my wife over there. We have a baby, and then I did all that extra TV over there. What?
Well, that's just it. You go from leaving it behind, going to a brand new country, and just starting fresh, essentially, to now you ended up back in the exact same boat, but now between two different countries.
This also reminds me of the conversation we had with Norm Nakamura, who's living in Japan. And one of the things he was saying is that there are no bad decisions.
Absolutely. You learn. Everything's a learning experience.
It's what you make of it. It's how you approach it. And you've got such a positive attitude. It makes sense that it would have, one thing would have led to the next, and that would have led to back to, what you're doing.
Yeah. So I think one of my moments that I messaged you guys, and that's in the questions, was I went to Korea with my girlfriend in February 2010, and we broke up in April 2010. That's really not a long time. And then I was just, as you've said, I'm a positive guy, but after that, I was, what am I doing here? I'm here. I'm all alone because we worked for a public education, like the school. You're there with like this group of English teachers, so you all bond. So like my friends were also her friends and stuff. So it was just like, am I going to go home? What am I going to do? And then actually I went to Japan. where you're friends from. I went to Japan and I saw my cousin over there, and I got to just escape Korea just for like 2 weeks travel Japan, do something different. When I came back to Korea, I was like, okay, this is it. I got 5 or 6 months. I'm going to make the most of this because I'm not going to come to Korea ever again. So I started Taekwondo, and actually the big turning point for me was I watched so many movies, and that was in Korea. I watched pretty much every English movie that would come in theaters, and it's just a way to get out of the house, but you're still like watching a movie. And there was a beautiful day, and I was going to go see a movie, but I was like, you know what? It's so nice outside. I'm going to go for a walk in this nice park. I went for a walk, and then I had to use the bathroom, so I went in this art gallery, and I met my wife in that art gallery. So if I didn't have that positive, let's turn the life around, I would never have met her. And
had a movie moment by the sounds of it. That was a movie moment
in front of a picture. It was like absolutely a movie moment. Her friends still do not believe her.
That's cute.
Do you remember what the picture was called? I'm going to put you on the spot.
It was a photography exhibit, and all the pictures were of parts of Daejeon, which is the city that we lived in. But one wasn't. I just didn't recognize this building. So she was standing next to me, and I didn't think she spoke English, so I just pointed and I said, Daejeon? I didn't say hello or anything. I just said, Daejeon? She said, oh, no, that's in Seoul. And then we talked for like an hour walking through the art gallery. Her sister took a picture of us exchanging phone numbers. Like it's a crazy, crazy first meeting.
That's incredible.
So cool.
And 2 weeks later, I decided to stay another year. She was that special.
During your first year, were you learning Korean during your first year? Did you try to learn it beforehand? Have you learned it at all? What's your stance on, or how comfortable are you with the language at this point?
My Korean journey is very personal to me. With the public school thing, they have like an orientation, and you go to this orientation for like a week or something at a university before you even teach. And then they taught us Korean there. And then some of my friends would go to like classes and stuff. I got a book and I never really read it. Later on, when we were dating and stuff, I would try to learn some phrases to talk to her family because they didn't speak any English at all. So I got some down. And then when I came back, so that was Korea, and then back to Toronto 2012 to 2016. I wasn't studying Korean then because I knew I'd be back, but I don't know. I just wasn't thinking about that. And then I was on some shows later. Like actually, Hey Ginny is the one that asked if I could get better at Korean because her viewers really liked me, but if we could converse a bit more in Korean. So I took a course. I went to university, and I did it like twice a week. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be great at this. And then I was in this class of like, it was a free class for spouses of Koreans. So it was me and then all of these women from like Vietnam and the Philippines and stuff who have Korean husbands. And they were trying extra hard because their spouses didn't speak their native language at all. Like they had no language in common. So they were studying really hard. Then I'm just like, hey, everybody, okay, I'll practice. Okay. But they were actually putting way more work than me. So I would come back the next day. I'm like, hey, how do you guys know how to say that? Now we didn't study that. Like, oh my gosh. So I did that. And then I had some, I was doing a video for university, and that clashed with those clashes and clash with the classes. And my wife's like, you know what? You should just like, that's not helping. That class isn't helping you. It's learning a language when you're in your 30s is a little harder. Like my daughter, fluent in both, no problem. She's 4 years old, you know. And of course, if I went full time at something, and there's hosts on TV in Korea and in countries like Japan that are like, they're from Canada or the States, and they're on TV all the time, not because they're interesting personalities, but because they're Korean or Japanese or whatever is really good. So this producer I worked with over there is like, Brian, your energy and stuff is way better than all of these guys. If you spoke Korean, you would be endorsing every product. You'd be on all the bus ads and stuff. And I thought about that, and at that point, I think I was just in Korea for another year. Korea was never like a long-term thing for us. We knew that we would live here. So yeah, I knew that if I said yes to that and said yes to full-time Korean classes and stuff, plus I have to support us as well. I have to work. So if I'm in university or something all the time, I gotta make money as well.
Yeah, the wife tends to like that. Wife tends to like when we're both making money.
Yeah. So in the work that I was doing, I would do TV stuff during the day, or I would do some teaching and stuff. But if my working time was only at nights, of course, maybe there are some nighttime courses, but to do full time, I just knew in my heart we wouldn't be staying in Korea for another like 5 years. So I just took the English jobs.
Well, and even without it, like I said, it speaks volumes to your character and to who you are as a worker, because of the fact that even without having the full knowledge of the language, you were able to find as much work and consistent work as you have in Korea, and it continues. So I think, like you had said, you could have had the world over there and you could have been on every billboard and bus thing and all that. But at the end of the day, you're doing and living the life that you want to live and providing for your family, which is all that you can really ask for in this world.
Yeah, so I on this one show I was on the Action English show, me and dancing in the yellow costume. The biggest English performer did a guest spot on that show. And I was talking to him after that about exactly that, because he had kids and he had to make that decision as well. He's from Australia, and at the time, he's still making TV over there now. And this was 2 years ago, but he was like, man, I can't wait to get out of here because my kids, I don't want them living here with the air quality and the lack of like green space and stuff. So I didn't want to be trapped like him, because it's a good feeling to see yourself on a billboard and stuff, but you have to think about. I was thinking a lot about the big picture and what we wanted in the future, and also we were living in this apartment that my wife's father owns, which was great, but as our daughter grew, that place smaller and smaller, so we either had to commits, okay, we're going to stay in Korea for 5 to 10 years and get a bigger place, and I could study Korean or something, or make the move back to Canada. And that's all. Our plan was always to just be there for 2 or 3 years and come back here. So that's what we did. And
there you go. And you were making that plan come to fruition, my friend.
Fruition.
All right. I've been talking for quite a while here. Brian, Mark, Aurora, do you guys have any questions for Brian? I gotta adjust the fact we have another Brian on the show. Yeah.
I have a quick question, and then I'll let you guys get into yours. My only real question I want to know is, you mentioned Action English, the show that you were doing. I learned that was the first kids show on a major network. That was KBS. That was hosted by non-Koreans. That's right. Huge.
Yeah. So
just wanted
to not mention that is doing you a disservice, because that's pretty huge. It was the first one.
Thank you
hosted by North Koreans. Yeah. Well done.
Non-Koreans.
Non-Koreans.
Yeah. What did I say? Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. You said North Koreans.
You said Korean.
Did I say? Oh my God. No, not North Koreans.
Yeah. So the shows that were before, it would be like a Korean host and an English host, and they do like stories. They'd have puppets or something. That was kind of the just standard. But this one was 3 white guys just being silly on the camera, and it really. Oh man, yeah, that was a dream job, and we did that. Nice. We did like 25 episodes of that or something, and it's still airing. We finished shooting that in 2018. Still airing every Friday. So when my daughter was in Korea, she would always watch it and say, "Oh, Daddy's on TV," and tell all her friends stuff. But yeah, being on, and I got that job less than a year after arriving in Korea. So the other guys I was working with, the Korean entertainment industry for foreign performers isn't huge. So they knew each other through friends and stuff, and then they're like, "Oh, there's this other guy, Brian. Who's Brian? Do you know who Brian is?" And then they asked, "Oh, how long have you been here?" I was like, "Oh, like 8 months." But I had the experience from before, from Byte and stuff, and from Treehouse that I got that gig, and I still keep in touch with those guys. That producer there is amazing and so much fun. I got to sing. There's singing in every episode.
And that was a good thing.
Yeah.
Because if I
Yes,
got
any
to
of us,
sing,
it might be a little, yeah.
exactly, yeah. Different. Sorry, go ahead, Mark Aurora.
So I have a few questions. Way at the beginning of the show, you mentioned something briefly about the Bare Naked Ladies, or maybe it was hearing that improperly.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that because, yeah. So any sort
Just
of background?
my love of Bare Naked Ladies.
Yeah. Just a huge mega fan of the Bare Naked Ladies.
So that's how Jason and Agnew and I bonded, because he's also a big fan. A little less so since Steve Page left, but we went on a Bare Naked Ladies cruise together in 2008, which was like BNL and Sloan and Sarah McLachlan and the Odds, Sarah Harmer, all, and just like a big party cruise. So did that. I've seen BNL so many times, and whenever as I talked about Nicholas Pickles being on this podcast I listened to, oh Brian, he's also a big BNL guy. So I just bring up BNL all the time. And when I was on TV in Korea, I was on these shows that would follow me. I was on these documentary shows to be like, oh, let's see what Brian's life is like, just daily life. So I would wear BNL shirts, and I got this one shot in where I'm listening to a BNL record while wearing a BNL shirt. I got it in. That's the first time, but every other time I tried, they cut it out. And I used to do I did morning radio. I did morning radio over there, and they said, "Oh, Brian, we can play some of your music." I was like, "Great, here's some songs." And never,
just all
never.
Bare Naked Ladies.
They just don't really know them over there. I remember hearing 1 week during a hockey game when they had the Olympics over there. But that's the only time. Oh, and I saw one of Ed's guitars was at the Hard Rock Cafe in Seoul, and I was like, blown away.
That's so cool.
But yeah, I've seen them so many times, and I love them. Love them.
Cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there was any sort of connection or anything like that.
I actually did videos for them. My last project for university, we did music videos for their like newest album.
Oh, cool.
So we did a claymation one, which was nuts, and it was so much work. Oh my gosh.
That must have been a
I was
big
gonna say, you
dream
said
come true
claymation.
for
I went,
you.
you're not still working on that now?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Another little piece.
Yeah.
moving it.
Yeah, it was it's hard for me to look at them now. They feel so like I was young. I was in university, but yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah.
And actually, when I did Brian's World, a show on Treehouse, I did a Bare Naked Ladies episode. Like the whole episode had Easter eggs for every BNL fan. And Kevin, who's a member of the band, drew the pictures. I went to his house and he gave me drawings that I got to use in the show. And then about a month ago, I was in contact with Matt Vogel, who is the voice of Kermit the Frog and Big Bird. And he is also a giant Bare Naked Ladies fan. So he wanted someone to send him this tape that they released for Record Store Day. So I did that. And I also sent him some of my stuff. And he loved my BNL episode because he's such a giant fan. So it's really cool to get to talk to Big Bird and Kermit about BNL. Then he sent me some autographed pictures, which was pretty awesome too.
Such a small world.
Yeah.
Did he send you any covers doing the Kermit or the...
He has a band. He sent me a CD for his bands. I forget the name of his band, but he has his own band.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's so cool. Yeah. The reason why I was curious is Bare Naked Ladies is like a band that when I was younger, I grew up listening to. Like my mom and my dad were like huge fans. So like on Saturdays or Sundays when we're cleaning up the house or making dinner or whatever, they throw on a Bare Naked Ladies album and just like dance around the house and singing and stuff. So I was just
That's how I grew up to it too. Yeah. Looking at Gordon
I still annoy my wife almost daily with 1 week when I have a shower. That's pretty much how I start my morning.
You did the it's been.
Oh yeah. Like
I almost started dancing as you did that.
Yeah.
for copyright reasons, we have to stop, Brian.
I also have another question, and this is kind of related to like going to a country like Korea or Japan. I personally have done some traveling in like European countries, but I've always wanted to go somewhere in Asia because it's so different. The culture is very different. Everything's very different. What was it like going to Korea for the first time, not having known the language? Is there any sort of struggles in that you realized, or I'm just curious about that experience.
Well, we've talked about how expressive I am. So for me to express what I want, I didn't find that very hard. Some people can find things more difficult for communicating, like, oh, I don't know what to do. Also, there's a lot of, like, if you go to a restaurant or something, there's a lot of pictures, and there's a lot of, like, there actually is a lot of English, even in Daejeon, which was it's not Seoul, but Daejeon's still 2 million people. Mm-hmm. I could still get by. And if you know some key words, when you get there, even just like 안녕하세요, 감사합니다, which means hello, thank you. You know, those are like two phrases you need to know wherever you go, and that will show whoever you're interacting with that you're at least trying. You know, and a lot of Koreans, actually, I would say Korea, the English proficiency is a little higher than Japan, actually. But a lot of Koreans do know some level of English. So we can kind of get by like some patchwork discussion. And now with smartphones, it's even easier because like on my phone, you can have like the translate camera. So if there's no English, you can point your camera at whatever you want to translate. And plus I have my wife who would just, can you just talk for me right now? Can you just say what I want to say?
I do that all the time, and my wife doesn't speak a different language.
So. but when I did one documentary show that followed us around twice, and then I did another show for another network that followed us around again. And then I was like, after doing 3 of those, I was like, okay, guys, I know the tropes now. I know it's like, okay, Brian's trying to, and even if I was in a situation where I was speaking Korean, they said, oh, can you just do that again and pretend you don't know what they're saying? I'm like, thanks. Yeah, I want to look stupid. But like totally, if you're thinking about going anywhere, like Asia is, I've been all through, after I had my stay in Korea the first time, I went all through Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Cambodia, Kuala Lumpur, Vietnam, Thailand. I think when you travel to, you realize that everyone just wants the same thing. They want to have a nice, healthy life, good life for their children. Most people around the world are very friendly and want to help you out. So if you are worried about how someone's going to react, if you don't know exactly how to say, I want a hot dog, they'll help you out. That's how I feel. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
Very
cool. Mark?
Very cool. I have 2 questions as well. So the first one is, I'm snooping because I didn't do the research before the show, but I've got your briandunn.tv site up on my computer here. And I see that back in 2009 and 2011, you did some stage. Is that something that you would be interested in doing again, or is that something that's on the horizon for you, that you're going to be doing more stage? And how was that experience for you?
Yeah, that was fun. That was actually sponsored by TV. We did a shadow cast of Jurassic Park at the Bloor Cinema. Okay. And so shadow cast, I don't know if you guys seen a shadow cast before, but you know the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and you have the screen and then you have actors in front. So I was Dr. Alan Grant in Jurassic Park, and we did that just for like 3 nights at the Fringe Festival in Toronto.
That's so cool.
And I still keep in touch with all those people. Two of my friends there got married that were in that cast. And I haven't done a lot of stage stuff, but I even did some more. This year it's not on my website, but I was doing like a tour for this like a mom. It was called Super Mom Story. It was like I did voice work for them, but then I joined their tour, and it wasn't like I was acting, but I really liked being in front of a live audience. It would be like me and like an audience of like 300 moms. Hey, how you doing? So I love that. I love that immediate response that you get with the stage. So yeah, I would totally do more live work again if I had the opportunity. Awesome. Yeah,
that's awesome. So I see. Obviously, you've done television, you've done radio. You were even in a print ad, which I won't talk about. The stage. What's next? What's next for Brian Dunn?
well, right now I am doing voice work in China. It's actually being the company has a Toronto location, so I get paid in Canadian dollars and everything. I pay taxes, it's all above board, but I do like about 2 or 3 days a week after my day job. I record podcasts for China, and it's like there'll be different topics. Like last week, I did a thing about different phrases that come from different languages that are used in English, like phrases that are like Latin phrases or Spanish or French phrases that are used in English. Or I do a series called Chinglish Buster, which sounds really funny, but Chinglish is like mixing Chinese and English together. So it's like a daily program, which I know they're looking far ahead because that daily program starts in January of next year. So they have big thoughts on the horizon for this. I've been working with them for a year and it's been great. It's not comedy, but it's still something to do with media. And also, like, when I was so I did those shows in Korea, but then this is crazy, but this Chinese kids channel was actually in the exact same building as Hey Ginny. So they saw my stuff and they asked if I wanted to do videos with them. So I went from being on the biggest kids show in Korea to being on the biggest kids show in China, which is like it's hard to fathom. Just like China is just gigantic. So the numbers. China also has like 4 or 5 different YouTube like services. So it's not just all on one. So I would just check to see like, oh, I wonder how many views that got, and it'd be 15, and then this weird character. I was like, I don't know what that character means. So I translated. I was like, oh, that got 15 million views in like 4 days, like, and that's just on one of the services. Like it's China. Like China is just gigantic, and Ginny was actually doing work for China as well because just the audience, So I'm glad to have my foot in the door there. I still get I still get messages to do like commercials or something in Korea. I'm like, hey, I'll do it. Just fly me there. They're like, oh, do you know when you're going to be in Korea next? I'm like, yeah, fly me there. I'll do it. I'll do the burger commercial. I'll do it. But they're too cheap. They're like, oh, Brian, you be and they messaged my wife. They said, Brian is the best for this commercial or this show. And we're like, okay, then it's worth the extra $3,000. That's not a lot of extra money, if I'm the best at this. So I'm going to go back. We're hoping to go back to Korea together in the spring for visits, and then I might do some more work there. I've had people asking if I wanted to do. There's like this host from the Kids Network in China that has her own show in China now with like the Alibaba, which is like a huge almost like the Amazon of China. They have like their own network. So there's a show on there, and she at one point wanted me to do that, but yeah, you never know. So I also have a day job doing like video on demand content at TELUS, which is not exciting, but I got a family and I got to feed them, and it's still TV related, and I love my coworkers, and it's fun to do. So awesome. I always just like my first trip to Korea. I do love TV, but if something attracts me that I want to try and I've never done before, I'll do it. It doesn't have to be TV. I still want to keep my foot in the door there, but I'm open to trying different things.
Very cool. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Brian, Mark, Aurora, do you guys have any final questions before we dive into our closing here?
I thought you'd want to talk about a show I was on in America. Did you see that show I was on? A big show?
Oh, you know what? We can't go into closing yet. We can't go into closing yet. You're right. We have to talk about.
Yeah, I thought that's everyone wants to talk about that show.
Hang on. He was on The Price is Right? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. It's on his resume. That's like I said, I've read it.
So yeah, you were on The Price is Right at the start of last year. Talk to us about how that came about and how much that meant to you. Because if you watch it again, your eccentric personality showcases on that show. But I think that was 100% legitimate. I think that was you being more you than you've ever been before.
So a lot of people don't know how that show works. They just think it's like you get a letter or they say, okay, you're going to be on, and you know you're going to be on, but you don't know you're going to be on. It's different now with the pandemic restrictions. They don't have an audience, but so those people know they'll be contestants. But I've been a fan of that show forever, just like all of you. I even watched that in Korea every day because it was just like, it was a Western show I could watch, like a daily show I could watch every day. And I was going to LA actually to do a little English teaching because there was this company that hired me, and it was like I'd be living in a church in LA for 2 weeks, but I get my flight paid for and food, and then they pay me, and I was like, hey, I'll just do this. Like, why not? Again, you just jump at these chances. So I was in LA. I got friends in LA. Maybe I could be on some show. I looked at what's taping, and my day off lined up with the taping day of The Price is Right. So I asked my good friend Matt Shin, hey, you want to go to The Price is Right with me? I was like, yeah, sure. So I filled in all the stuff, and I was the third person in line. Matt came there probably like 40 minutes late, so I'm like, because I was Matt wanted to go, but I was much more into it. So even more, Matt's such a good guy that when we were doing our interviews, he didn't put on his like, I'm Matt Chin thing. He was just like, he just let me do my thing because he knew I wanted to be on more. Nice guy. It's good to have friends like that. So,
Good guy, Matt Chin.
Yeah. So you go in, you get that classic name tag, and take a picture that they try to sell you later, which I bought, which is totally cool. I bought all this merch. Even if I'm not on the show, I got a shirt, I got a hoodie, I got a mug. It's literally one of my favorite shows. And then you go and you wait. It's just a lot of waiting, just like any show anyone's been on. It's hurry up and wait, right? So you're waiting, and then group by group, you go and you talk to a producer, probably in groups of 6 or something. And she just goes one by one, like, hey, what's your name? What do you do? What's your name? What do you do? Just to everybody. And I think a lot of people didn't do their research and didn't know how consequential this meeting is. So some people are just like, yeah, like literally the 2 people in front of me were like friends. And then they're like, hey, my name's John, and I work at Buffalo Wild Wing. And that's it. They didn't say anything. They didn't say anything else. Like you're not gonna get on the show with that. So the producer came to me, asked what I do. I said I make like funny videos for kids. She's like, oh, what's that mean? And I talked more about that. She asked my favorite game was. I said Rat Race, which is not a common answer. Everyone would say Plinko, I think. So she asked if I knew why do I like Rat Race. I explained. She said, did you know Drew Carey made that game? I was like, yeah, I know that, of course. So after that, Matt's like, Brian, you're on. She liked you. You're on for sure. And then we just waited more. They show you an episode while you're waiting. And then when you get in the audience, you have to, from what I read from past contestants online, they're always watching you. And if you are really fun in the interview and then you just sit in the audience, they're not going to pick you. So Matt's actually a pretty quiet guy when he's not on TV. So he was just sitting there. But I was like, whoa, they're playing Pitbull. I love Pitbull. I was doing all the dancing. I was like, oh, this is great. And I was excited, though I don't really like Pitbull. But I was excited to be there. Then the show starts. First 4 contestants. I'm not called. Oh, well. But then I was number 5, 5th contestants. I get called up, and then I got up on stage in the second half. I was the first one in the second half. And classic game show prize. You can win a new car. So I played the money game, which is the first 2 and the last 2 numbers. And I won a Pontiac, a Hyundai Veloster.
Nice.
And I could not believe winning a car on The Price is Right. And then it came to the wheel, and I was the big winner, so I was the third one to spin the wheel. The 2 women in front of me overspun, so I was automatically in the showcase. And they also gave me a spatula, which is I was wearing a shirt saying, hey, Drew, please, I want a new spatula, which is a call out to Spatula City from UHF, which is one of my favorite movies, a Weird Al movie.
Love that.
Yeah.
My mom.
My mom. They gave me a spatula. Drew Carey signed my spatula. He signed my name tag. I got up to the showcase, and I was like, I can't believe I'm at the showcase. Like, holy crap. And I was over by like $300, so I just miss it. But, you know, even just getting on stage was amazing. The thing is, if you get called down but don't come up, you can't be on the show for 10 years. So at least I was on stage. I was like, okay, I'm on stage. I really hope I win. But I won a car. And then I got the car a few months later, and you actually pick it up at a local dealership. They don't ship it, and you can't. There's no cash. There's no choice to accept cash, which some people think there is. So you have to pay, like, I paid $10,000 in tax because it's 35% tax over there. But hey, got a car. I'm going to get some money back from that tax very soon. As a Canadian, I'll get about maybe 8,000 back of that 10, which is not bad. And I sold the car, and it was like the best experience ever. Like oh man, I loved that.
Very
What a great
awesome.
time. One of my favorite parts of that clip was just Drew Carey calling out your shirt the second you got on that stage. And I was just like, this is amazing.
Well, I was thinking, actually, I almost did like a BNL shirt because I was almost going to go to the Grammy taping. It was like the day before, but my day off changed. And then I was like, everyone says car. I want a new car. I want to play Plinko. I was like, I should put something random. Like I was going to put a toaster, or I was going to put like a microwave or something. But I was like, hey, spatula. So I went to like this company, just like an online make your own t-shirt company. And then they have like clip art for spatulas. And I just put that on there. And then my friend actually was on the show a couple months later. And she asked them, oh, do you remember my friend? He had a spatula? I was like, yeah.
Why didn't you choose the wheel of fish? I mean, it had to be a spatula.
Okay. When I go back in 10 years, I will say, hey, Drew, I want to spin the wheel of fish.
There you go.
Perfect.
It's awesome. Funny, actually, Ryan, you and I know somebody else who won a car on Price is Right.
Wow.
D-Man.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. D-Man is a wrestler, and he was on Price is Right.
I saw that guy.
Did you?
He was wearing a Toronto shirt, and it was the card game, right?
Well, his first answer was 666. His first number to get called up was 666, and he didn't win. The second chance he got, he chose 420, and he won. So he gets up on stage, and then he wins the car, and then he does this. He spins the wheel, and he won the $10,000 on the spinning.
Oh
wheel.
My gosh!
And he ended up going on to the final thing, and he didn't want to win that because with all the taxes, like you said, with all the taxes you have to pay on prizes, he says, I've already got to pay the taxes on the car. I don't want to have to pay the taxes on the trip and all the other stuff. So he didn't even try.
You can also refuse certain prizes. So a friend of mine, she went a couple months after me. She's like, hey, Brian, you were just on that show. Do you have any tips? So I told her exactly what I told you guys about how important the meetings are. Just be really...
The personality was such an important thing you said, too.
So she got on the show. She won the showcase.
Wow.
But she won a trip to Vancouver, and she lives in Hong Kong. So you can not accept certain prizes. If you win a showcase, you don't have to take the whole showcase.
Okay.
Cool.
Good to know for you guys. I know you're going to be on that show.
Next opportunity I get.
I mean, I tried once. I'm
cool.
in the middle of waiting 10 years, apparently. I still can't get over that. I never knew there was a 10-year wait period. Even if you just like shown up and been a part of the interview process, you still can't appear for 10 years. No, it's only
you can be in the interview. It's if you were called down, you can't be back for 10 years. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
There's people that have been there. Like I could just tell from the audience, there are people that have all their friends, and they were talking about the games and
like, oh, here we go again.
Oh yeah. There's certain people that have been there many times. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Well, Mark, Brian, Aurora, any other questions before we dive into our closing? I feel bad for almost skipping over that Price is Right. Thank you for reminding me, Brian.
I got to shine. Let me shine, please. I want to brag.
The only question
I think the Jurassic Park Shadowcast was the coolest thing.
That is pretty cool too. The only question I have left is, what mic do you have? What microphone are you using? What is that?
Moano. It was like a
easy for you to say.
Moano. It was
sounds very nice.
It sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
Sounds good.
I'm so glad to be out here because when I record my podcast, I'm in like literally a closet, because I don't know how much echo you're hearing now, but I want to keep it as like, as tight as possible. So
you can definitely
nice
tell
to be
that
out
you
here.
have a setup that you can do professional podcasting and audio recording and stuff. So
great.
cool. All right.
Awesome.
Sorry.
So at the end of each episode, Brian, we like to ask our guests a couple closing questions. And our first question for you, I know we're getting there. We're almost through it.
But press right. Yeah. I got it.
So our first question for you is, and I think we might know the answer to this already, but what is your jam? What's the music that gets you through each day? What song is in your playlist?
Oh man.
What makes this difficult for you? Something non-bare naked ladies. Something non-BNL that's in your playlist that gets you through the day.
Through the day. A song that has a very I have a close relationship with is Zippity Doodah. And you know why? So Disney, and my wife is Korean, and in Korea they don't do first dances at weddings. Weddings are literally 30 minutes. You're in and out, and you have a buffet and you leave. They're really fast. So we were planning our Canadian wedding, and we're on a cruise, just like hanging out, and we were dancing together. I was like, we gotta think of our first dance song. She's like, how about Zippity Doodah? I was like, that's not, you can't really dance, like that kind of, you want something kind of romantic or something, right? But I found a Louis Armstrong version of Zippity Doodah, which is so beautiful. And we danced to that on our first dance. And I found that record in Korea, of all places. I could not find that anywhere here. I found the record in Korea, and that's one song that has a special place in my heart. When it's our anniversary or whatever, I put it on the record player. And if you're having a tough day, you think about that song. And yeah, music's an amazing thing, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has those memories.
Just thinking of that song, it's hard not to smile.
Yeah. Remember everything.
Especially records, the smell of the records.
I have an interesting question, like a side question to the music. Do you listen to any Korean pop or Korean music at all?
My K-pop knowledge is like 11 years old. So the most K-pop I listened to was like the songs I think of were ones that were popular like that first summer. I don't know why. Just was. My wife's not into K-pop. One reason she wanted to study English was she liked English music.
Oh,
so and she'd be like, "Oh, this is one of my favorite English songs I listened to in high school," and she played Uptown Girl. I'm like, "Oh, but this isn't Uptown Girl." She's like, "Yeah, it's Uptown Girl by Westlife." I was like, "Do you know this is a Billy Joel song?" She's like, "Who's Billy Joel?" So it's funny what they grow up on, and different, like Westlife for some reason was just huge in Korea in her high school. Also, I was in Korea when Gangnam Style came out.
Oh, gee.
And I remember that being
huge.
just everywhere. I remember it being everywhere, and then seeing my friends' Facebooks in Toronto saying, "Oh man, this song's awesome." I was like, "Oh, you know about that song?" And then I saw it on like American shows and stuff. Like, wow, it's crazy. I would love Psy, who, as the singer of that song, does these amazing, gigantic concerts in the summer with like water cannons shooting out. Like, I would love to go to one of his shows. Like, they look really fun.
Yeah,
so,
very cool.
But yeah, K-pop is it's wild, man. When I was coming back from Korea, my friend's a big BTS fan and asked me to bring back some BTS like stuffed animals or something. Like, it's so popular.
My sister's a super fan of BTS, and I listen to some of their music too. So I was just curious.
People learn Korean because of BTS, and they travel to Korea because of BTS. They're so popular.
Definitely.
Oh, that's crazy.
Definitely.
I'd actually forgotten, Aurora, that you'd mentioned on the show before that you're a K-pop fan, that your sister was huge. I'd forgotten all about that.
Yeah.
Diving into our last couple of questions here. what is a tool of the trade that you've got? Could be something that you use in your everyday life. It could be a mindset that you have. What is a tool of the trade that you need in your day-to-day life, whether it be helping your career, helping your personal life? What is it you're using? Outside of that wonderful smile.
I think what I always think about, I guess it's not like something I hold in my hand or something, though we always have our phone. I got my chaplain phone here. You got to have your chaplain phone when you go to work.
Chaplain phone,
Is like my mindset for all of these things I've thought about, all these things I've done in my career and stuff. I think the most important thing I have in my toolkit is like thinking about things in the big picture and the ability I have to try something else and do something where I don't know exactly what's going to come out of this, and I'm so glad that my wife, I have a great partner in her, that when we decided to go back to Korea in 2016, when I had a full-time job and it's a kind of big deal to go back and, kind of start over again. And it was kind of rough when we started back in Korea, but, we don't regret any of that, and just kind of knowing that, as you said, there's no bad decision. Brian, you said no bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
No bad decisions.
No bad choices.
No bad choices, just go for it. And of course there's things that I wish have turned out better in my life, but overall I'm very proud of what I've done and can't wait for what's next. The uncertainty. Go. I like that. I like the little uncertainty. Like what's next? What are we going to do next?
Awesome. That's awesome. Our final question is actually something that we ask you to do, and you've already provided to us. I really enjoyed your answer to this. Don't worry. You don't have to think on this one.
Okay. I'm on a chair. Okay.
So we ask each of our guests to lay down a challenge to our viewers, something that will help them in their day-to-day life, or at least just encourage them to try something new. So what is the challenge that you want to lay out to our guests this week? Or to our listeners, sorry.
Okay, so I challenge guest Brian to do. I think the challenge I would have is to watch something. It could be a movie or a TV show that is not in English and in a language that you don't understand, and especially check out something that is in your preferred genre. So comedy in Canada is very different than what I was seeing in Korea. And Korea is actually a lot of slapstick, which is, I think, why I did well over there, because I grew up with Charlie Chaplin and Laurel Hardy and Three Stooges and all those. So that's what I brought to my performances over there. And I would watch full movies in the theater, not knowing anything of what's going on, and try to figure it out. I watched with my wife, but I wouldn't say like, oh, what's happening now? Like you just kind of figure it out. And you learn a lot about, like, for a lot of people, actually, Parasite is the first foreign movie that they'd seen ever or in a really long time. And the director, Bong Joon-ho, said in his Academy Award speech, watch things with subtitles, experience other cultures. You can open your mind up to so many different experiences and ways that people live their lives. Like even when I was, I think the first time I went to the Toronto Film Festival was, I was like 12 or something. My mom's friend had like a pack of 10 tickets. I got to pick what I wanted. And actually the first movie I saw was Korean. Crazy. And it was about, I still remember it was about a couple, and the girl had a developmental disability, and the boyfriends came from a rich family and they fell in love, but their families thought that he was taking advantage of her and stuff. And of course there are subtitles then, but I'd never seen a foreign movie before other than like a Jackie Chan jump around, kick everybody movie. So yeah, that is my challenge. And I think in our generation, so many of us have watched foreign content, but why not try something different? And especially in your preferred genre, because man, I learned a lot about what makes Koreans laugh by just watching. I watched like just their regular shows, like they call them gag shows, which are like variety shows. And I would take some of that into my performances. And actually one time they were wearing my costume, and they like reused my costume in one of those gag shows. So that was fun.
Like your exact costume, you saw it on
yeah.
You still wear that.
And there was other. I saw a Hey Jenny video recently it was 3 guys just like us in Action English, yellow, red, and blue costumes, but wearing shark heads running around. It's like, that's my costume, man. Don't get it dirty. I can't believe how much use they got out of that yellow sweatsuit. It's crazy. Get it home.
I love this piece of advice. I'm a huge fan of anime, Korean dramas, and other Korean TV shows and movies and stuff like that. And it's just totally different storylines, totally different ideas that I'd never seen in Canadian, American TV. So yeah, I love this piece of advice. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, Aurora, can you confirm, because Brian mentioned this to me earlier in his message, a lot of poop jokes in Korean comedy?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched a whole lot of Korean comedy. I'm more into the romantic genre. So this is still a part of your advice. Like I'll find stuff in my own genre, like romance and kind of like action, or like the two.
Though still, I saw like a action movie about these guys climbing a mountain, and before they climbed the mountain, one of them had to run to the porta potty to go poo. It was like a poo joke in this movie. There was so many poo jokes. I couldn't believe how many poo jokes there were.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna start watching some Korean movies by the sounds, because that's right up my alley. That's my style of comedy right there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Brian, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show. This has been extremely fun. A lot of excitement over for me. I've been waiting to do this for quite a while, obviously. I mean, growing up, being influenced by you and all the guys over at Byte TV, this was a huge moment for me, and it was awesome getting to hear your stories and hearing just how you got to where you are. I'm hoping that for those of you listening right now, you're able to take something that Brian had said, apply it to your own life, and maybe find something that you've been looking for over the last several years. Brian, Mark, Aurora, before we sign off, is there anything else you guys want to say to our listeners?
Just want to say thank you to Brian for taking the time to be with us tonight. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in and keeping returning and watching our podcasts. There's been a lot of interest lately, and I hope that continues. It's been a lot of fun for us. It's definitely kept us sane over the past year and a half, almost 2 years doing this. So thank you all very much.
Thank you so much for having me, and Ryan. It's been great seeing you grow over the years as well, into having your different shows and getting married and everything. Oh my gosh, we're men,
We're men now. Yeah.
And
I think
Brian and Mark and Aurora, really nice to meet all of you too. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
It was great to meet you, Brian.
And before we do let you go, where can everybody keep up with your content right now?
Well, you can go to briandunn.tv, and there you can connect to all my socials and stuff. I also have I just made a new demo with stuff like I put prices right. I was on the Marilyn Dennis show last year making a hamburger. That was fun. Why not? I'm a chef. Come on. And I was in some random Korean commercials that are really funny to look at in there. And if you are in China, go on the YLYK app and you can listen to me talk about English.
All over.
So right now I'm not making a lot of contents here, like on video, but that will come soon. I promise, and it will be on that website.
Awesome. And again, for all of us here at Expressions, thank you guys for tuning in each week. We will see you next Monday right here on Expressions.
Bye.
Bye.
Ooh, ooh.